My 21F, parents, 50SF/M, took down all the trophies in the house except for my sisters, 22F. Have 5 siblings, an older brother, 30, 2 older sisters, 27 and 22, a younger sister, 20, and a younger brother, 18. My second oldest sister, I'll call her BB, is a year apart from me and has always been the golden child, not to say that the rest of us were scapegoats. BB did everything. She kept straight A's through school, was always MVP or champion on her sports and academic teams. Our parents kept a bunch of shelves for her trophies and medals, and it was always filled. They kept having to add more space. Since the rest of my siblings and I also did athletics and such, we also got shelves for our trophies, but they were never as filled and never as successful as BB's. She was competitive, and always a winner. The only sport we ever were equals in was soccer because we played on the same team, but she always got MVP. There was a little resentment, yeah, but I knew it had to be benched. BB didn't have an ego or anything, she was just good at what she did, and it wasn't her fault that our parents recognized it. We get along really well. We both go to school near to our parents' place, but they've been in the process of moving houses and doing remodels, so neither of us have been able to visit. I know that BB continues to do sports, and actually has most of her college paid for by sports scholarships. Our parents' remodels were finished, and we both came down to celebrate. They gave us the tour, and in the living room, they have a huge shelf of trophies. I figured they had consolidated all the trophies, but later on, I went down while everyone was out on the deck and read the name plates. They're all BB's. I could understand if my parents had maybe gotten rid of my older sisters, most of hers were participation. But my brother was really successful with lacrosse, I did good at soccer and swimming, my younger sister has numerous academic accolades, my younger brother is a really talented weightlifter and wrestler. The fact that they got rid of all of our trophies for BB's is insulting. I'm assuming ours are either in storage or the garbage, because they're not up anywhere else in the house. Our parents have never treated us any differently. They love and appreciate us equally, but I guess not. I just feel insulted. I was always vocal about how much I loved soccer and how important it was to me, and when I moved on to college, I kept with it. Sure, I was never the best, but I was good, and I got trophies and medals. They just got rid of them all for BB. I don't know how to feel. Am I just being petty? What could I even say to my parents? Right now all I want to say is, screw you guys, but I feel like that's unreasonable for a 21-year-old. Is there anything I can say to them? Seriously, is this just me being petty? So, I spoke to BB the night I wrote my post. I pointed out that it was only her trophies on the shelf, and it wasn't my favorite interaction. I think being away from her for so long definitely changed my perception of her, and I didn't really notice that she had changed, especially her ego. I showed her each trophy and nameplate, and she went, well, of course they're my trophies. When was the last time you got better than bronze? I asked her if it didn't upset her that the rest of ours were basically hidden even though we've had a lot of dedication to our activities, and she said, no. Dedication doesn't make you a winner. BB told me I was wasting her time, told me to grow up and get over myself. Then, she went to go hang out with our parents and I think I finally got it. She was the golden child, and we were the scapegoats. The entire time I'd been there, they'd just been hanging out with BB and I was there too. I felt so upset, and admittedly, I self-imploded. Having my own sister that I looked up to and admired treat me like that was just a slap in the face. Our older siblings were so far in age from us that we really got close and relied on each other. Later, I got my parents separated from BB, and asked. They pretty much echoed her, telling me I hadn't earned my spot on the shelf, and that my trophies had gone in the garbage because they didn't impress anybody the way that BB's did, and said that I was an adult, and I should basically just suck it up. I've never been more hurt by anything. I don't think I fully realized the scope of it when I was younger, but it clicks now. My game was on the same day as BB's, and they went to hers. They brought snacks to BB's competition, but not mine. Everything for BB was hosted at our house, but nothing for the rest of us. I pushed so much of it aside and called all of my suspicions jealousy because my relationship with my sister was more important. But it didn't matter half as much to her. Her ego has gotten stroked for years on years, and they finally let it all come out and rear its ugly head. I was just flat out offended, especially that they threw everything out as though we didn't matter as much as BB. They'd thrown everything out. I was just so mad that I ended up leaving, and my parents yelled at me for causing drama. I told my siblings about what had happened because I thought they had a right to know that their trophies got removed, and I did try to sound unbiased. It didn't really work, because my whole family is in a dramatic sinkhole. My younger brother called our parents sobbing, my older sister has been playing passive-aggressive and just flat-out aggressive phone tag with BB, and my little sister was so upset she just called me bawling. I've been trying to do damage control, but everyone else is just mad for what's happened. We all got a text from BB that basically read like, "I'm sorry I'm better than you, but I deserve our parents' love more than you," which naturally got everybody riled up again and just caused more problems. This has been basically the worst week of my life and I hate it so. Yeah. There's my update. My family won't speak to one another and we're all in a big dramatic mess. I finally understand the phrase, when you know, +4y update. I, 24F, really just want to gush my heart out and tell y'all my story, but it's very very long because it's just so full of amazing moments. My two best friends recently just got into relationships in Jan through the first or second people they met on dating sites, and I was just like, how? I've met so many people and they've all just either been nice or awful, for me. I had just about given up. I had a few people I was talking to. One was incredibly funny and friendly, but he seemed more like a buddy than a potential partner, and the other was a dude from the army who was nice and all, but just not my type. Anyway, to cut the long story short, my monstrous satanic nephew came to stay with me for the weekend to learn English, and I had to keep him busy and occupied, so I asked the guy who I thought of as a buddy if he wanted to hang and give me company while I babysat that little shit. Think Dennis the Menace, but worse. Mind you, I had never met this dude before. We met for pizza and that kid didn't miss a chance to embarrass me or that guy all night, and this guy just took it all like a champ. My nephew absolutely loved him. After pizza we went bowling together and to the arcade, and the night was turning out to be just so perfect that I, a very shy girl who never ever makes the first move, just kissed that dude out of nowhere. I didn't even think about it, I just automatically did it. He seemed happy though. After that I took that guy home with me and my nephew to play board games. And he met my mom too on the first date. I never ever bring boys home, especially not at 1 in the morning. He stayed on and played games with my nephew and I until the kid was fast asleep and we finally got to talk alone. He went home at 6 a.m. that night. We've met every day since. He hung out with my nephew and I all weekend on purpose. I gave him so many chances to just leave and he said, "No, I want to hang with you and your nephew if you don't mind," which I just couldn't understand why. But I think he just liked me. Our first date was over 12 hours long. And on the first date itself he said to me that kissing you just feels so right. And I couldn't agree more. Everything just gets so right. I felt so comfortable with him and I finally felt like I met someone who I could be 100% myself around. And I also felt that I'd known him my whole life. I gave him the password of my phone and allowed him to get stuff out of my bag by the second date. I met his dad, doggo, and best friend since my nephew left, and we've just been gushing over each other over this past whirlwind week that feels like a bad rom-com. I'm just sitting on cloud 9 right now and I'm happy, and that's all I feel like. I just know that this one will go well. My 35M, mother's 58M, new fiancé wants me to call him Dad. He's 24. How do I navigate this? Please buckle in because this is all so weird. I'm a 35-year-old man, and for some backstory, my dad died when I was 19, leaving my mom with me and my 2 siblings. I'm the oldest. It took some time, but eventually my mom started dating again. We don't live together per se, but our houses back onto each other and have a gate, so it's pretty common for her to offer to do my laundry or me just go over for dinner or go look after our dog, that kind of stuff. Plus me and my siblings go over there for dinner every other Friday night or so. A bit after she started, the men she's been dating have been getting younger and younger, and I've never had a problem with them. She's been very open to me and my siblings that she wants to get married again, and we've always been supportive. At least after the initial shocks, lol. The latest guy is by far the most serious, and they've been dating since around last June. He proposed at the start of autumn and they want to get married next summer. Again, me and my siblings are fine with this because it's her life and we trust him. He's a nice guy and they clearly love each other. But anyway. So long and short is, this weekend, her fiancé, let's call him Phil, calls me and asks me if I could come over. I say yeah, sure, I'll be over after work, and I assumed he just needed help with some DIY stuff they're doing. When I get over there, he calls me sport and says we need to talk. I should mention this is something he does to me and my little brother, calling us things like kid, sport, scout, little buddy, or my personal favorite, calling us red and blue, seemingly out of nowhere. My brother is 30, by the way. He tried it with my little sister, 28, too once, and called her princess once, but he stopped when she just stared at him. So thing with Phil is that he reminds me a lot of Charlie Day's character in Horrible Bosses, in that his sole ambition has always been to meet a girl, get married, and have a family. When he told me and my brother this, my brother made some joke about how maybe our mom's going to come short on the last part, and he got very upset, but they made up after. Anyway, so I go round and I ask if my mom's around, and he says no, it's just him and that we really need to talk man to man. I say sure, and he starts talking about how he's always wanted to be a father, etc., and raise a son to call his own, and then he drops this bombshell by saying, now I know I can never replace your father, the man who made you, but it would mean the world to me if you could call me dad. I'll admit it, I sniggered a little. And then I knew he was serious because he looked like he was about to cry. And he didn't drop it either. I asked if he really meant it, and he got really emotional and started talking about what it means to be a man, and how his purpose is to have and provide for a family, and he wants me and my siblings to be part of that family. Like he reiterated he'll never replace my father, and this did rub me the wrong way a bit, but he's ready to step up and be my dad, and provide for and protect me and my siblings. And I'm just sat there thinking, dude, I'm a decade older than you and live in a separate house. I don't need providing for, and even if I did, I don't think a guy a third of my age who works part-time at the hardware store and is into collecting manga is the man to do it. No offense if you are into that, lol, just, I dunno, I was a bit taken aback. I was in shock, so just said, okay, and he gets emotional again, but in a happy way, talking about how he wants to go camping or go to a baseball game. I don't even like baseball, LMAO. And how he joined the Lions this year and how he wants to bring me into it too, as his boy, which just feels so surreal, even more so as I'm a Shriner, so all this talk of service and charity isn't the brag he thinks it is. Because again, I'm 10 years older than this guy. Well, I ended it by just saying, this has gotten a bit too weird, and I was going home. He got very upset and I left, called my brother, and he agreed it sounds weird as fuck. Later my mom called me and she wasn't disappointed but admitted it's made him very upset and depressed. I told her that if he's embarrassed, he doesn't need to be. I get he's excited about the marriage and we can just laugh this off as a funny story. She then said that wasn't what he was upset about. He, and she too a bit, is upset about the fact he poured his heart out and I rejected him. She said yeah, it is a bit kooky, but this is how he proves to himself he's a man, and I guess I was a bit angry and said something like, first off, it's not my job to certify what's between his legs, and second, this doesn't prove he's a man, it just proves he's a nut job. I apologized immediately, but she said she didn't want to hear it and hung up. She called back 10 minutes later and we apologized, and she begged me to just go along with it until he has some kids to call his own. I won't go too much into the details here, but she sort of let slip they plan to try IVF treatment because she's not ready to give up on being a mom just yet. And while I have my own thoughts about whether or not that's a good idea, I'm not here to litigate on that. We finished up fine and I reiterated I'd support her, and she agreed that it was definitely a stressful situation for me but begged me to at least think about it. Which leads me to here. I did think it over and obviously I'm going to say no. I had a dad and he died, rest in peace dad, and that's the only dad I've ever needed, I've ever wanted, and I'll ever bestow that title on. I'm not asking if someone's unreasonable or what I should do, more so what I should say. This clearly means a lot to him for some reason, and I deeply love my mom, so want to try and minimize the damage. Especially as we're still so involved in each other's lives and they live behind me. How can I make it clear to them, as painlessly as possible, that I think this is weird and borderline offensive? I really don't want to rip the band-aid off because I fear what it might do to the family. Edit, showed my brother the post and he laughed so hard he started coughing lol, then said we should call him Dr. Phil, and each other blue and red, so swap the nicknames he gave us around. Thoughts? Edit 2, as people were asking, he has no access to my mom's money or anything like that. She rents the house and it came pre-furnished and otherwise has no real assets. She doesn't make a lot of money anyway, so there's no pecuniary motive we could think of. Original post and slightly amended the title for clarity. Anyway, so I told both my siblings and we agreed we'd collectively put our foot down with Phil at our next family dinner next week. Especially after an incident where Phil referred to my brother as sport and asked if he wanted to go see a baseball game with him. Admittedly, I was a bit spurred on by what you all said and got involved, pinging him back with, no tickets for me daddy, and my brother responded with, daddy wants to me all to himself Hot, and Phil took a few minutes to respond before saying he was shocked, speechless and disgusted. He then messaged me in private to say he was utterly appalled, and that he'd never disrespect his own father the way you boys did. I kind of lost it at this point and said, right, that's because you're not my father Phil, you're a 24-year-old man-child dating my mother. You have no right to my respect, especially not to the respect a father gets. I immediately said sorry, but then blocked his number and left the group chat. Apparently he sent a similar thing to my brother, who responded with more daddy stuff, and Phil blocked him. Well, that aside, I don't think that family dinner is going ahead. After the original post blew up, it seems someone from his Lions Club found it and reported it to their chair or whatever, and Phil has either been expelled or resigned or in the process of one of the two. He has removed nearly all mentions of the Lions from his social media and no longer mentions being a member, with his last post on it being some cryptic goodbye post where he kinda drones on about what it means to be a man in the modern day and the duty of fatherhood bestowed on all men at birth. Really weird shit. My mom called me half in a panic, half in a rage after, about the stuff I'd been telling about him before breaking down and saying we need to meet, which we did and got my brother to go over too. I know he has temporarily moved back in with his parents in the next town over, but from my understanding they still want to go ahead with the wedding. But I think that's more so because they've already spent money on it. When she said she was determined to have more kids, plural, my brother did step up and asked if she really thought that was a good idea at her age, and I pointed out that assuming she had the baby next year, and she lived to 80, they still wouldn't have finished college. She just stammered on about how people live longer these days, before breaking down crying and admitting she's not ready to give up on mothering due to some deep-seated trauma and fears about the family breaking apart that I won't go into for her sake. When we reassured her that we weren't going anywhere, she calmed down and we had a very good honest conversation where she's agreed to drop the IVF stuff on the grounds that it'd be too expensive and unlikely to get greenlit, but she's still adamant it's scientifically possible and she should be allowed to do it from an ethical standpoint because she has to win that argument, uneasy face, and has agreed to look into fostering instead. Me and my brother highly doubt anything will ever come of that, so we're not that worried anymore. The very good news is she's also agreed to look into therapy/psychiatric help to deal with her trauma, and we've helped get her in touch with a nice lady in town to unpack all this in a more healthy way. So at least one person is getting the help they need. I have no idea what's happened with Phil or what's going to happen with him, but I did make it clear to my mom that he is not my dad, he's not even my stepdad, I'm not a kid. And he's never going to be either one outside of legal fuckery. She relented pretty quickly. I think she's finally broken out of her shell at least, and we've agreed that if things go ahead that's going to be a huge red line, though I dunno if he'll want to be friends with me after all this LMAO. Anyway, thanks for the help on the original post, y'all. Edit, bit of an update as I can't respond to everybody, but I think the marriage is off. Phil has gone AWOL again and has had a huge argument with his family as they've demanded he call off the wedding and date people his own age. This apparently made him snap. Me and my mom have met his mom and older brother, who said Phil is very insecure around girls his own age and has never been able to talk them, hence his preference. This very deeply upset my mom, and after some begging from all of us, she has agreed to push the wedding back, though she wants to keep dating him. I have no idea where Phil is, though his brother assumes he's couch surfing with his D&D friends who have been sending me and my brother some not nice messages because clearly we're just jealous of the MILF hunter. If any of you socially inept fucks are reading this, I don't need to chase middle-aged folk because I can talk to boys my own age like a normal person. Peace. Ada for telling my wife she's just as racist as her parents. I 53 white. My wife of 30 years Naomi is Japanese. We have 3 kids. This story focuses on my oldest son Kyle, 28. When Kyle first got to college, he began dating a Japanese girl, and when he introduced her to my wife, Naomi loved her. They didn't end up working out. But for the past 3 years, my son has been seeing Danny, a black girl. My son was in medical school across the country, and he ended up meeting Danny because they both were volunteers at a soup kitchen. I remember the first time he sent a picture of her, my wife immediately didn't like her. I'm going to try to phrase this without sounding ignorant myself. But she looks like the urban black girl most think of when African American women. She has the big hoop earrings, the long nails, the long eyelashes. I think she looks stunning, but I've never been in a situation where I was involved in African American culture. Recently my son moved back to our city for residency, and Danny moved with him and started law school. They were staying in an Airbnb while looking for a place, and this week they finally found one. So they invited us over for dinner. Danny cooked soul food, and this stuff was amazing. I complimented her food and my wife gave me the side eye. Naomi then pulled out her phone and asked Danny why does she dress like that and why was she twerking in public. Kyle asked his mom what her problem was. I then took the phone to scroll through Danny's Instagram. And while she did have some videos of her having fun, she also had plenty of pictures of her academic achievements. Before Danny could answer, I told my wife Danny is young and having fun. I asked did she see that Danny graduated cum laude or all the time she volunteered. My wife looked angry that I would bring that up. Naomi then said that she thinks that Danny isn't good enough for our son. Danny then asked why Naomi loved Kyle's ex so much. She didn't graduate with honors, she has many different boys that she posted on social media. Danny then said it's evident the reason Naomi doesn't like her is because of her race. Naomi doubled down and said so what? I've never heard Kyle even disrespect his mother, but he told her to get the fuck out. Naomi left crying. In the car on the ride home I asked her what was her problem. She asked why didn't I defend her. I said because she was being a racist and a hypocrite and she's acting just like her parents. Her parents didn't like me because I was white. She just said it's different and was just silent on the way home. And when we got to the house, she locked herself in the room and started crying. I can't feel bad for her because if someone disrespected my wife the way she disrespected Danny, I would have absolutely did the same exact thing Kyle did. But I did because I was also harsh towards her in this situation. So I want to mention a couple things. First off, I've been around black people. They were never part of my inner circle until Danny came along. Also, I think it is stupid that twerking has a negative connotation. It's just dancing, and the video that my wife found Danny was at a nightclub. She wasn't at church dancing that way. My daughter, Ari, and her mom are very close. So I asked her to breakfast today and we talked. I just asked her if she knew her mom to be racist. She asked why, and I told her about the incident with Danny. Ari told me everything makes sense now. She said it was subtle, but when she was in high school, she lost a chess match to a Hispanic boy and Naomi said he must have cheated. But during another round when she lost to a white girl, her mom just said she was really good.